This big show is on the second New Deal, still in the unit of Roosevelt and the New Deal. There are critics of the New Deal, and because the Great Depression persisted even with Roosevelt's first New Deal, FDR had critics who claimed the New Deal programs did not go far enough, while others said the New Deal went too far, so he had critics on both sides of the spectrum. Dr. Francis Townsend was one of the critics. He was a California physician. He developed what is known as the Townsend Plan. This would be a pension that would be awarded monthly, $200 a month, to persons over 60 who were no longer gainfully employed. And you'd get that $200 a month provided that you spent the entire amount within 30 days. So his idea was to just cycle this money through the economy. The $200 a month would be like $3,500 a day, and you'd get that every month, provided that you spent every penny of what you got at the beginning of the month. Now, there's growing support for the Townsend Plan, and it encouraged FDR to push for the Social Security Act. As an aside, the average old age assistance benefit was about $20 per month as late as 1939. And the program known as Social Security was not due to take effect until 1942. So this was a very modified version of the Townsend Plan. Another critic was Father Charles Coughlin, a Roman Catholic priest who used radio. He had about 30 million listeners on his weekly program to criticize FDR's policies. An initial supporter of the New Deal, he became a vocal critic calling for what he called social justice. He called for the government ownership of railroads and major industries. And he then began to attack what he called the problem of Jewish bankers and to vocally support some of the policies of Adolf Hitler. When World War II started in 1939, the federal government forced him off the radio. When it became clear we were going to go to war with Nazi Germany, the government did not want to have a person who would be encouraging what is, in essence, treasonous activity on radio with 30 million listeners. And then we have Huey Long, a governor and then senator from Louisiana. He originally supported FDR, but he split with him because he wanted to run for president in 1936 on his own. He was a Democrat. He created Share Our Wealth program with the motto, every man a king. Now, the basic idea is this, that your personal assets would be limited to between $5 and $8 million. And that, as you see there, that would be like $88 and $144 million today. And your annual income would be limited to $1 million or $17.7 million today. The idea that nobody needed more than $1 million a year to live comfortably. No one needed more than $8 million to live comfortably. Every family was guaranteed an income of between $2,000 and $2,500. And you can see today that would be the amount today, between $35,000 and $44,000. And there would be an old age pension for people age 60 and over. And veterans would be given their benefits. Free education for everyone through college. And the money for these programs would come from the richest people. It would be taken from them. Pictured here is the richest man in history, John D. Rockefeller. He is the second from the right with the white hat. They would take his extra, because he was worth, even in 1930s, about $1 billion. They would take all of his assets away, other than $8 million. At its high point, there were 27,000 Share Our Wealth clubs with almost 8 million members. Many poor people really liked this idea. Unfortunate for Huey Long, before he could run for president, he was shot by an assassin in 1935. So, some takeaways for you. FDR and the New Deal received criticism from both the right and the left, from conservative and more liberal or progressive ideas. FDR ignored criticism from conservatives. They were not part of his voting base, and FDR responded to critics from the left by creating the Second New Deal, including the WPA. That would be the Works Progress Administration. It would be its largest public works program. Between 1935 and 1941, the WPA employed 8.5 million workers and spent $11 billion in 1940 money. They constructed 650,000 miles of roads, 125,000 miles of 125,000 public buildings, 853 airports, 124,000 bridges, and 8,000 parks. And then he also passed the Social Security Act, which we mentioned before, provided some financial security for older Americans and people with disability. So the Second New Deal came out of criticisms he responded, that he felt, especially from his voting base.